this is Justin Johnson. Welcome to the Intermediate Slide Guitar video course. So this video course is designed for players who are familiar with the foundations of playing slide guitar. You know, the beginner stuff, how to hold the slide, how to control the guitar, how to mute strings. I'll be talking about some of these, but if you need a brush up on some of the foundations, some of the fundamental techniques, then make sure you check out my beginner course, video course for slide guitar that's part of this instructional series. Since we've covered all those foundational techniques in my beginner video series on slide guitar, we're going to get into one of the other topics that I probably get the most questions asked about when it comes to slide guitar. And that's what kind of tunings do you use, and how do you use specifically open tunings to help you play slide guitar and to help you make the best use of those 6 strings you have when you're playing the slide. First of all, I guess the best question to answer is, what is an open tuning and how does that differ from standard tuning, which most guitar players are probably very familiar with? That's the most standard tuning there is, really. Okay, so standard tuning is starting from the low string, E, A, D, G, B, and your high E string. Standard tuning is great because it makes it to where a lot of the patterns, you know, scales, chord shapes, those patterns on the fretboard become very close and very easy. They come in convenient shapes that really fall under your 4 fingers when you're playing. Scales just are nice and easy to play. Things like that. But then the problem is, when you pick up the slide, it starts becoming a lot of motion. You know, you're having to really move around a lot to hit those scales, melodies, and especially chords, you know. If I wanted to play this, let's say, open E chord right here, E major chord, I could play it down here, I could play it up here. You know, I can move to these different shapes. But I can't actually hit, you know, a big, nice 6-string chord using the slide. I can go in little chord fragments. But I can't just strum a chord. And that's because if I strummed open, if I just played all these strings open right now, it's not harmonious. It doesn't make any sense harmonically. And so when I move the slide up the fretboard, essentially what I'm doing is I'm taking whatever that note combination is on those open strings and I'm moving it up in the exact same pattern. And that doesn't make any sense harmonically. And so that's why you start thinking, okay, if I'm going to be playing with a slide, I'm basically playing with 1 finger, and I want that 1 finger to make a certain chord. That's when open tunings come in. So let's take this E major chord, for example. If I wanted to play an E major chord down here, I could use this shape right here. When I strum all 6 strings, it sounds nice and harmonious, and that's an E major. What if I wanted to make this the chord that my open strings are based on, basically? That way, when I move a slide up and down the fretboard, that chord shape starts moving with me. Well, that's exactly what an open tuning will do. If I tune these 3 strings that are not open right now, and I tune them to these notes, that'll be a B, an E, and a G sharp, then I'll have an open tuning. And that's what I've just done. So now I've tuned these open strings to mimic the pitch of those fingers being pressed down to make that E major chord. So now, because of that, I'm tuned to a chord. I'm tuned to E major, and this is called open E. Anytime you hear the term open tuning, it means that the strings, when they're open, or basically when you're not fretting anything, are going to be tuned to whatever chord that tuning's named after. So open E tuning is named after E major. So those open strings are going to be tuned to that E major chord. And again, this works out great for slide guitar because, like I said before, I can use the slide, and as I move the slide up and down the fretboard, I'm essentially moving that major chord up and down the fretboard. So the higher I go, the higher the pitch gets, but it's going to stay that major chord for all 6 strings. So, for example, there's an open E. That's the open E tuning. So that's an E chord. If I move it up to the 3rd fret, I've still got a major chord, but that's going to be a G major now. A major, B major, and so on for every fret. So it can get really confusing, when you're thinking, okay, this is an open E, this is an open D, this is an open A, this is an open G, and we're going to talk about all these different tunings here in this video course. So to understand how these open tunings work and how they interact, it's good to know a little bit of the music theory involved in how a major chord is built out of 3 notes. And so not to get too bogged down in music theory, I'm going to give you the essential knowledge that basically will let you know a little bit about how these open tunings are constructed, how the major chord is constructed, and that'll give you a frame of reference for how to compare these tunings to one another. So basically, the major chord is 3 notes. It's comprised of 3 notes, and you basically just repeat those in different octaves. So when I start on this low E string, that E is going to be the root note. And this major chord is going to be derived from what's called a root note, a major third, and a 5th. So you have the root, which is an E. You have a G sharp, which is your major third. And then you have a 5th, which is a B. So you have your root, your third, and your 5th. And that's basically how you spell this chord in this tuning right here. So if you go down from the bass string, it's E, B, which is the 5th, an E, which is an octave higher than the first E, that's your root again, a G sharp, that's the major third, that's what makes it a major chord, a B again, that's your 5th again, and then your E, which is another octave higher of the root. So together that makes a major chord. So I'm telling you this because if you take, let's say you ignore those notes, but you take that spelling of root, 5th, root, major third, 5th, root, and you just lower all of those pitches down 1 whole step, then you'll get an open D tuning. Okay, so I've just retuned the guitar and now I'm in open D tuning. So now all of my notes on this open string are going to be tuned to a D major chord instead of an E major chord. But the thing that's great about E major and how it relates to D major, these are 2 of the most common slide guitar tunings, is that essentially they can be thought of as the exact same tuning because the patterns are exactly the same. All I did was take those same patterns, the same tuning model of root, 5th, root, major third, 5th, and root, and I lowered the pitch of all of those notes down 1 whole step. So instead of starting on an E, I'm starting on a D now. So now in open D, the notes are D, A, D, F sharp, A, and D. But again, what's great is if you learn a song in open E tuning, or maybe you learn some riffs, you could play that exact same riff in open E or open D, doesn't matter. The only difference is it's going to be a whole step higher or lower, but you can actually play with the same muscle memory, the same patterns on the fretboard, and everything just works out great. It's just that the pitch is either higher or lower. So you may wonder, if open E and open D are so similar, why would you even go between the 2? Why pick one over the other? And there's lots of different reasons for that. Let's say you're playing a song with a band and the band's used to playing a song in D and you're used to playing in open E. Well, you can just tune your guitar down to open D and now you'll be playing in the key that the song is in. Or let's say the singer, has to hit a certain note and you have to play in a certain key. That's when it's good to tune your guitar and make sure that, I might know this song in this key or I practiced it in open D maybe, but the singer needs to sing it a little bit higher so I can move up to an open E or maybe up to an open F or something like that, which is a half step higher than that. Again, all those patterns, if you practice them in one pattern, they're going to apply to those other keys. And so that's one of the good things to know when you're determining what key you're going to play in. Plus, sometimes a song can sound, like I like going down to open D sometimes because songs sound a little swampier, it's lower pitch and the strings get a little looser. Alternatively, if you want a tight feel on the strings, it's good to tune up a little bit, and that helps push back against the tension of the slide on the strings. So you might find a guitar part's a little hard to play slide with on open D when the strings are more loose. So you tighten the tension up, raise it up to an open E, and you'll find that the slide's a little bit easier to play in open E tuning when the strings are a little bit tighter. So we can apply this same knowledge to two of the other very popular, very bluesy, classic open tunings, and that's open G and open A tunings. These have a different pattern as far as, the root, the fifth, and the third, and where it falls on the fretboard, but they relate to each other the same. Open A is a whole step higher than open G. Other than that, they're the exact same pattern of tuning. Okay, so I've tuned back to standard tuning. To show you this open A tuning, we're going to start with that. If I show you this chord shape right here, a lot of you might recognize it. It's an open A chord shape. A major. And if we look at the